All right.
So that was June. Ironically.
Oh, having a dollar balance is great. We just got to now work together. This guy looks familiar.
Very cool. No clothes. We can take bets.
No, we didn't bet.
Let's say 8:15.
Jane, Charles, Richard, Wendy, Michelle, Paul, Nancy, presumably Morgan and I are all okay with Nate's going out.
Got a response from.
Call this meeting to order. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by posting on the bulletin board in Village Hall, by mail to the Ridgewood News, the Record, and by submission to all persons entitled to the same as provided by law of a schedule, including the date and time of this meeting. Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Houck. Here. Councilman Pucciarelli.
Here.
Councilman Ritchie.
Here.
Councilwoman Walsh.
Here.
And Mayor Aronson.
Here, please join us as we salute the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please join us now in a moment of silence as we honor the American men and women serving in the armed forces, as well as those serving as first responders. Great, thank you very much. Good evening, everybody, and welcome. We are going to go right to our public comments, but actually before we go to public comments, Village Clerk Heather Maylander. Like to say
Yes,
something?
before we go to public comments, we have a new business owner, Michael Pickholtz, who has opened a new children's retail store, Kidville, located at 30-38 Oak Street. Mr. Pickholtz, if you could please come up to the podium and let us know about your new store.
Good evening, welcome.
Sure. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it. I was invited to attend and didn't know I was going to be given a speech, but I can probably do this in about a minute. I've done it enough. Thank you very much. As Clerk said, I'm looking to open Kidville here in town. We've been at least approved for our CCO. We're going to be taking over the majority of the old post office building and redesigning both the ground floor and the entire basement where all the empty offices have been sitting for the last few years, and turning all of that into the Kidville. Kidville is an interesting concept started about 10 years ago in Manhattan. It's how I got to know it. My oldest daughter, who's now a 5th grader at Hawes, was one of the first, I call them students, to attend Kidville. And basically, the concept is to create an early childhood enrichment and development center, focusing on everything from music, arts, painting, dance, and sports. Within the facility, we have a theater for children. Those theater classes are taught with a 4-piece live band and Muppet characters. It's not your traditional, maracas in the basement that we all went to as children. We have a fully padded gym that in 10 years of the business operating, there's never been an injury, thankfully, at any of the facilities. And we do everything, as I said, from music to art to dance to painting. In the evenings and weekends, we also do special parties, birthdays, events. We tend to work with all of both the public and private children's institutions in town to put on fundraisers and events for them as well. And we tend to work with them as well. We're not a competitor to a nursery school. We're not a nursery school, and we're not a child development center, a daycare center. We actually look to sort of bridge that gap from newborns to when a child sort of starts into nursery school and then transitions into the public schools. And the way that I brought this to Ridgewood was I moved out here about 2 years ago after visiting family for over a dozen years. My wife and I decided that it was silly to live in Manhattan when we could live here. We moved out here, and for the first year and a half we lived here, a year or so, almost every day I came back from working in the city, and my wife said to me, "Why don't we have a Kidville in Ridgewood? It's the perfect place for one." And so last spring I went and sat down with friends of mine that started it and said, "I want to bring it here." And I was actually told that someone had the area and been trying to develop it for 2 years and was trying to put it in Paramus and Allendale. And I said to them, "Give me 30 days and I'll have the contracts and start putting things together." And we just in March, beginning of March, closed on the old post office location.
That's great. Well, first of all, welcome, and what a great addition to the community. Forget about Paramus and Allendale. You're better off here. And I got to tell you, for someone who wasn't prepared to give a presentation, that was excellent.
Thank you.
Yeah,
that was great.
covered everything.
But welcome, though, and we look forward to working with you.
Great. I look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. And with that, we'll move on to public comments. Anyone have a question, comment, suggestion? Please, anyone step up to the podium. Good evening.
Good
Welcome,
evening.
Gary.
Gary Cirillo, 260 South Pleasant Avenue. I just actually was going to commend the new manager on the budget report. I watched it. It was very, very good. It was easy to follow. It was very transparent. I think only one time did she say she didn't want to get into something. So as opposed to years past, I thought it was very good. A few quick items on that. Is it true that we paid $400,000 in unused sick time? Was that a line item that was correct? $400,000 unused sick time?
I don't know the number off.
Nobody knows?
We can get back to you on that.
Okay.
Let's get back to you.
And then the other thing she mentioned was the hospital cost. Are we incurring all the legal fees with Valley? Do we as a village pay all the legal fees on our end for Valley?
Legal fees? I don't...
Do we have anything with that? No?
Well, why don't you,
Okay.
just to be specific, why don't we just ask him, you're talking about legal fees for the planning board attorney? Legal fees for their attorney? What are you talking about?
On our end, planning board, so on and so forth?
Okay. I know that last year, all I can speak from is the experience that we had last year is that my fees were paid for by Valley Hospital.
By Valley, okay, that's excellent, thank you.
Sure. But Chris, did you want to add something to that, or?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yes, the fees for the hearing process with Valley are being covered by Valley until there is a decision made by a vote of the planning board. After that, it would be on the village's nickel or dime, or in this case, a lot of dollars.
Great. Great. Thanks, Chris.
That's very good to hear. Third item was Roger Wygand. Is doing a job on Spring Street the other day. Really miss him. I think that in the future, if we do any consideration to naming a building or a park or anything like that, I do believe that Roger's name should be included in that. I think that more so than village employees, whether you agreed with him, sometimes I agreed, sometimes I disagreed, but I really did respect the fact that he was always out for the good of the town, and he always put a lot of effort in, and he really is sorely missed. And then the other thing before I get to my main thing is, does anybody know what we pay out annually in our costs to employees who no longer work for the village? Meaning what we pay out in insurance and pensions on an annual basis. Does anybody know that number?
Don't know the number offhand, but that's another one. We'll have the village manager.
All right, I called the village manager's office, but I didn't get a call back. I was just curious what the number was. Okay, I'd be very interested to hear what that number is, if anybody knows it. All right, and then on the final item is May 17th will be this year's Project Pride Day. We will be meeting at the Clock Tower at 9 a.m. All politicians, exiting politicians, entering politicians, any groups, organizations, whoever wants to come. It takes us about an hour, I'd say, to 2 hours to complete the whole job. Tomorrow we have Keller Williams coming in. It's their day of volunteer. They're going to go downtown and clean out some of the cigarette butts from downtown, out of the pots, replenish some of the dirt in there. So that's going to be a big help. But we do encourage everyone, if you can make it for an hour on May 17th, we meet at the Clock Tower, we put some flowers in. It goes pretty quick, and then you get to see the fruits of your labor as the year goes on. So again, we thank you for our budget, and we hope to have it looking as beautiful as usual. Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks, Gary. And just on your points on Roger, we all agree with you, and we're going to find a fitting way to honor his memory. In terms of Project Pride, thank you for doing that, and thanks for stepping up as you always do. And on the points that you asked about, but concerning the budget, we'll have the village manager get back to you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks. Good evening. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. Ann Loving, 342 South Irving Street. I'd like to thank Gary for all the work that Project Pride does, and I had a conversation with him just before the meeting, and that was subsequent to actually an email that I had sent at Deputy Mayor Pucciarelli's suggestion to the village manager. One place that seems to fall between the cracks is the tree wells in the Central Business District. They are not the responsibility of Project Pride, and and seemingly they're not the responsibility of anybody. An occasional shop owner does provide plantings in those, but most of them, as the deputy mayor and I were saying the other day, are like cigarette butt holders, and they're missing dirt and whatever. And I was just wondering how, obviously this takes money, but maybe some sort of pachysandra or some kind of ground cover could at least be put in them. They look horrible. And, next to all the beautiful pots that Gary's group puts in to have these tree wells. Roberta didn't write back to me. I'm guessing that she's away, because I know she's very prompt. And so anyway, I thought I would say that on the heels of Gary's report.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks, Angie.
Yeah, I just want to point out, the asset is there. We have all those buckets, and you're quite right. They're just not being maintained, and they look like giant ashtrays at the moment.
Right, and the shop owners are not the property owners. So for a shop owner to have to buy whatever, that's above and beyond their rent and everything else that they're paying. So I don't know who's expected to maintain them, but they look terrible. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Just on the point about the email, just so everybody knows, we're having email problems this week. We've switched over to a new application, and so we've got some challenges on our end. So that might be one of the reasons also. So, any other questions, comments? Oh, please.
I just wanted to make mention, since Roberta's name has come up a couple of times, that she is attending a municipal managers conference this week, and she's very good at getting back to you. So if you leave her a message, she certainly will.
And I would bet she's actually watching this right now. Good evening, welcome.
Good evening. My name is Tom LoCicero. I live at 30 Alden Road in Paramus. I'm the owner of All Points Towing Service. I'm one of the licensed towers for the village of Ridgewood. Back in 2010, the current ordinance was put in place. In the ordinance, there's a stipulation that requires us to ask of the administrator and the mayor and council of an increase up to 2% annually. I spoke with the village manager, and she had told me to be here tonight so we can discuss this. However, I see that she's not here, so that may be why it's off the agenda for this evening. I do have a packet. What she asked us to do, the towers for the city, for the village, was to put together something showing how our increases have increased over the years. So you can take that into consideration on raising our fees to help us compensate for those huge increases over the last 4 years. I can leave these with the engineer, Chris, who was very instrumental and wrote up the last towing ordinance, and then he can hand them out as needed with the administrator. And maybe at the next meeting we can take this into consideration at that time. In my letter that I sent into the village, I'm requesting 6% increase because each year we were entitled to ask for 2%. I have not asked for that over the last couple of years, those increases. So the increases that we're going to show you are far greater than 6% over the last 4 years. So I'm going to leave that off with Chris, and he said he'll make sure it gets to everybody, and hopefully we can take it into consideration at your next meeting.
Great, appreciate it. Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Thank you. Good evening, welcome.
Hi, my name is Robert Wu. I'm a homeowner in Ridgewood since 1980 for 35 years. I'm a retired professional engineer. I have some pictures in front of the council. I hope it will be passed around. The first one is a tax map, number 41, showing that there is an easement for a storm drain behind the property between Hopper Avenue and South Irvin Street. The second one shows the storm drain ditch. Yes, through the years, through the decades, has been overfilled with yard debris and dirt, and it's really just a depression without any function. It doesn't lead any water into the culvert. The culvert itself is blocked by all kinds of debris. So the third one shows the ditch being partially filled in. So it's not